You're watching the Chucktown Wind Report Thursday night update for January the 7th. Let's talk about winds and weather for the next couple of days. And also, I can't believe I'm saying this at the beginning of January, but we also have a tropical update, believe it or not. There's a system offshore that we're watching that could take on some subtropical or tropical characteristics over the next few days. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that as well. We may see a little bump and swell from it over the next day or two, but most of the energy is going to be heading to the east and to the southeast, and that the swell activity will probably end up hitting Bermuda and fizzling out into the Atlantic to the east. So first of all, let's talk about our surface map and what's going on here locally for our winds. We have high pressure built into the north that has been there for several days. The center slid to the north where we were seeing a little bit of a tidal gradient. Now it's weakened. We're seeing this northerly wedge down the coastline. Right now we have northeast winds. That should continue through tomorrow. We'll probably toggle between northeast to northeast. With a little bit of a sea breeze oscillation tomorrow. We could see some low teens with mid-teens pulses. So I'm going to call for about 10 to 14 knots on a northeasterly flow tomorrow, with a possible couple of pulses up to the maybe 15, 16 knot ranges. The air temperatures should get warm again. We got up to about 63 today. The water temperatures are right around 61 to 63, so that's about even. We're looking at something very similar to what we had today for tomorrow, with a little bit of increased cloud activity. So we have this low pressure system down here in the northeast Gulf of Mexico that's going to sort of sit there. Some of these clouds are going to be streaming up into this area, and then we also have low pressure out west. It's going to be drawing a cold front boundary that'll push through Saturday night. So Saturday winds look kind of variable. Look like they could even leave a little bit more to the east as time goes on, but winds are going to be weak on Saturday as a result, so probably 8 to 12 knots, maybe a couple of pulses up to 13, 14 tops, with a weaker gradient for Saturday. And then as this cold front comes through on Saturday night into Sunday early morning, behind that we'll see some strong moderate westerly winds. So Sunday looks like we could see probably some mid to upper teens on the westerly flow behind all of this cold front activity and all this troughing and this mess that's heading towards the east coast. So let's take a look at data scope for Charleston right now. We have northeast flow. We have moderate winds, 10 to 12 knots along the beaches, mainly to Folly Beach and those areas that are more open to the cleaner fetch. So Isle of Palm, Sullivan's Island obviously are wind shadowed over in that direction. Folly Beach Pier is a little further out, so we're seeing a little bit of a higher build there. And like I said, I do expect to see the winds be about 10 to 14 knots tomorrow, and then a little bit less on Saturday, and then increasing from the west on Sunday. So not much going on out there. Sea surface temperatures, let's take a quick peek. I did say 61 to 63 degrees. Let's see. We're starting to see a few cooler numbers right around 59 to 60 start to sort of in pockets off the cooler shelf waters move into the coastline. So probably seeing between 59 and 63 degrees. Those temperatures will vary as long as the tides are coming in and out at 6-foot swings. So that usually is a factor as well for our water temperatures. They're never going to be one temperature. There's usually going to be fluctuating between 1 and 3 degrees on that. So as far as rain precipitation forecast, looks like we get a slight chance of rain for tomorrow, and that's going to be just a trace of rain, if anything, with that clouding that moves into the area. There's 1 mile that does take it up to almost 4/10 of an inch, so it's not entirely out of the question. We could see a little bit more in the afternoon develop, and then as we get into Saturday night, where the cold front's coming, you see these chances of rain increasing, and again, really just a trace of rain. One of this models does take it up to half an inch, so we're looking at anywhere from 1/10 of an inch to half an inch for Saturday night. Once that clears out from Sunday on for several days, it looks like it clears out, so the rain potentials go down. I think that's going to do it for the wind aspect for the Chucktown Wind Report this time. Now I'm going to flip to the tropical update, and we're looking at the National Hurricane Center has issued a 10% chance over the next 48 hours and a 30% chance over the next 5 days for this low pressure system that's developed offshore to sort of slide off to the east and maybe take on subtropical or tropical characteristics. So that means if it does acquire a name, the name will be Alex. And that should be very interesting. It would probably be one of the record-breaking event for it, if anything, if it does occur. So if we look at the data scope for the area out over the water, I want to take a quick peek at what the winds are doing now. The Bermuda West buoy is showing 33 knots, and there's some gusting over 40 knots in that area. So definitely some moderate to fresh gale force winds going on out that way. And then actually over Bermuda, it's a little bit quieter. But what we have going on is we have a lot of cooler air diving down from the north around and wrapping into the center. So a lot of the warm core to the storm is gone. Plus, the sea surface temperatures around it underneath it and on the surface of the water are also cooler out that way. They're in the upper 60s to near 70. So not very ideal for formation of tropical just yet until it slides east and south over time. If we look back at the graphical, you see this curve that brings it back down to the south, and this area of water out here is definitely warmer. It's back into the 70s. So look at the earth.noldschool.net. I want to take a look at where the surface low. I made the mark here. This is where the surface of low pressure is. It looks like it's pretty tight. They're saying that the winds right now are about 60 to 65 knots, and I think a lot of that is done through what's called the Dvorak technique, where they gather some information and it's sort of estimated to be where the winds are. Now, some of that is done with the advanced scatterometer, and this is an ascending pass and descending pass from a satellite. And if we take a quick peek at what the advanced scatterometer reading is, you can see some of the knots from the vertical profile from the satellite firing through the atmosphere down to the surface of the Earth and getting vertical profiling. We can see where they get some of these numbers from. Another one of these ASCATs, or advanced scatterometers. Take another look at a different aspect here, and you can kind of see a better core over on this side where they're showing about 60-65 knots. So that's no hurricane hunters have gone out there yet and dropped soundings, so we don't actually know for sure, but we do think that the extratropical characteristics of the storm have the winds way up near 50 to 60 knots. So that's like I said, through the Dvorak technique. Now, as this system heads over to, go back over to the 5-day outlook. As this system heads down to the east and southeast, we start to get into some warmer waters. Now, our sea surface temperatures here, Bermuda is actually right out here, and the sea surface temperatures in this area are actually rather cool. So we're looking at, I think we had about 66 to 70 degrees, somewhere in that realm where that low pressure is right now. And as it heads out over from this area where it is, down over to the southeast, this is where all this warmer water is. So we're getting into the 70s over here. But there are some hurdles to encounter because we do have some upper level shear going on over in that area, and we do have the Saharan air layer to deal with as well. That's at the mid levels. So you can see way out here in this area, out to the west of Africa, off of Africa, way out into the ocean, this Saharan air layer, we call this the dusty tongue of the Saharan desert, is extended all the way out. So even if this storm does make it down to this area, it still has a battle to go to with the mid levels, which that'll just suck the moisture right out of the system. So we can't really say it's going to be named a subtropical or tropical storm yet, but definitely something to watch. Definitely an interesting system altogether to have in the beginning of January. Going back to the global map, I want to look at the surface low one more time, and just to check, we always want to check what the center low pressure is doing at the surface, mid levels, and the upper levels. So if we look at, this is surface, here's 500 millibars, this is 18,000 feet up. If we get a center of circulation over that over the surface rotation, then we know that we have a healthy system coming. It's fairly close. You can see where the surface circulation is, and then where the mid level is, and they're very close. So that means it's a rather healthy, deepening low pressure system. If we keep going up to 250 millibars, it's about 36,000 feet. We get an idea of what the shear is. Well, there's not going to be very much of a upper level low at this point, but you can see the upper level shear is really tearing across, and most of that clouding is heading off to the northeast of the storm. And if we look at the GRE on radar, you can see a lot of this activity wrapping around this low pressure system, and all the clouding and everything getting strewn off to the northeast of the storm. So definitely something to watch. Another little area I'm looking at right now is along the Charleston bump offshore, where we have some warmer waters meeting these cooler shelf waters. We're seeing some rain banding as a result of that. That's a pretty fascinating feature. It shows the difference in water temperatures from the Gulf Stream along to the cooler shelf waters, and what it is called downstream moisture from this system, which is wrapping rains around counterclockwise around it and down over these warmer waters along and meeting the cooler shelf waters. Here's some of that rain making its way up into Florida and Georgia. It should fizzle out. We have some rather dry air in our area, so we're not expecting any rain tomorrow. Maybe a trace in the afternoon if any of these clouds hold any convection. So that should wrap it up for the tropical update portion of it. So we'll keep an eye on this tomorrow and see what goes on with the storm. We're just going to watch it and see if it gets down to the southeast a little bit more and gets some warm air characteristics and some warm water with it, that could do it. So, but like I said, there's some things to encounter, like that Saharan air layer, and also fighting off the cold air wrapping around the center. And that upper level shear has just gotten most of the cloud tops and all the upper level activity really pulled off to the northeast of the storm. So that'll do it for the Chucktown wind report. I'll be back tomorrow or tomorrow night to report on the tropics and maybe do a quick update on the winds. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.